to the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio, Studio B.
Here we are at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. And yeah, you made it to Adventures of a Feral Hippie, hippie, hippie. Here we go. And I do want to thank those who have done that donation click. But we got to keep on clicking, keep clicking away, because we got at least another, let's say, 1,000 to go, plus 100. And we really would like to keep this station going. I love this station. I have had the best time at this station, no matter what else occurs or whatever else happens. I am proud to be me and be here. But I also want to make a suggestion. If you haven't donated yet, okay, go to the homepage, click at the donation spot, because any $50 donation will get you one of them silver bars. Yeah, maybe you could, deco your patio with them or whatever. But, I like silver, so it's a good idea. I mean, $50 for a silver bar and helping support a commercial-free, volunteer, 100% listener radio station, internet access. And we're on other stations, too. And I know my guest will be able to rattle it all off, but I am not going there. But anyway... Please, if you do the donation of $50 for the silver bar, put in your mailing address. Return address would be perfect, because a lot of people forget to put in that memo thing, and things get disrupted, and we don't like that. We like to make things smooth, fully smoothly. Anyway. And a $75 donation will get you one of the Revolution baseball caps. Oh, I want a baseball cap and a hat. Well, that is the hat. But anyway, they've got everything there. And again, please, if you're donating those nice amounts, and please put in your return information. Now, I have followed this gentleman for quite some time. And the thing is his voice just soothes you, and then it excites you, because this is the guy he is. And I wanted to get to the softer side of this beautiful person, because I'm enthralled by the beauty and the brain power, because there's not a lot of that out there. I mean, you can find it. You really want to kind of rub elbows with it. So here I am, and I'm going to introduce my friend, Douglas Dietrich. I know it's Duane too, but, hey, Douglas. Mwah, welcome, brother.
Mwah. Hugs and kisses, my dear.
I know, all the time,
lady.
man. I feel them too.
Yes. And I adore your lava lamp. We're inside of Mona Radler's yurt, and we're looking around at the various decorations. She's got black light posters. She's got velvet. She's got, the various kinds of neon art and architecture. And we're just, higher in kites right now, high on life, high on oxygen. And
right.
Just kind of really, kicking back because I didn't prepare for any of this at all. I made certain not to prepare for it because I knew that Mona Radler would take us wherever she wants to take us. And I can't resist asking, with Halloween coming up, did you have any particular costumes in mind or any suggestions for myself? My biggest problem being, of
Little
course,
Bo Peep.
That's for which one of us? You or I?
You, honey.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of us has to be the sheep. That's
okay. I play any role sometimes. I just can't cackle on cue. That's all.
Well, I'll have trouble cackling at all today. My voice is dead. I don't know why, but it's just one of those days where keep in mind I normally am going to bed at this hour, so and I have my own program tonight, of course, but. Since Mona insisted that I come on a Tuesday, I couldn't help but accommodate. And with that, I'll let you kind of take over and take myself and everyone else where you want to go.
All right. Pull your beanbag chair closer, buddy. Let's get going.
Yes. We'll snuggle.
Well, I know you have an etheric side to you. And I don't hear a lot of that. And I would like to get a little more involved in knowing what has brought you to this realm of where you are now, because I really believe your spirit has driven you, even though you're the man of words. Oh my gosh. How do you keep all that in your head?
Well, really, I don't. It's all like a giant goldfish bowl, and a goldfish bowl can only hold so many marbles, and all the marbles were packed in, and cracked the bowl a long time ago. So what I do is I just retrieve the marbles whenever I can that are rolling around on the floor, try to crack them, back into the cracked bowl, but it doesn't always work. So they're just kind of like on call whenever I need to access them by outside sources. I write a lot of notes, or I did a long time ago. And so I go through a slush pile whenever I'm, trying to call up facts or figures. And believe me, whenever you're on air and you're regurgitating these as fast as you can because of time limits, which nobody in much of the listening audience who's never spoken publicly tends to understand. They don't understand the parameters of chronological time that we operate in, even though individuals like Mona Radler operate on cosmological time, where there really is no calendar and there is no time, and it's all kind of timeless, and we're all kind of just taking our time. When we're in this framework on our particular venues, we're stuck with a very limited amount of time. So whenever we're spitting out facts and figures, believe me, guaranteed, you're going to get things wrong. And people, of course, try to hang on that, and then you just do your best to work along with it, of course, and just roll with the punches. So
Yes.
so what's on? But when you speak of my spirit and whatnot, do you mean like why I was? Do you feel that I might have been driven to incarnate at this particular time and place, or
Right.
Yeah,
Because we do that, even though we don't recognize that we are more in charge of our beings than we've been taught.
And well, with what I do, which is essentially kind of act as an iconoclast, I'm trying to catalyze the destruction of an old order, the installation of a new one, and people like yourself, beings like yourself, souls as yourself, are kind of with us no matter what happens or no matter what order is installed or imposed, because beings like yourself are observers and enjoyers, well, or try to enjoy
Right.
the ride as it goes along.
Mhm.
And so, as an observer, I might ask you why you would think that I would incarnate at this particular juxtaposition in the chronology while we're stuck within chronometric frameworks. Obviously,
I think we have a renegade soul group, and this is why we've actually met here at Revolution Radio. And the whole situation is that we are here to change the paradigm, make it the way that it's supposed to be. But I just got over, and I still keep getting over, the ignorance of that people don't even see themselves. They only react to life instead of being life. And that's just oh gosh.
Yeah, well, once both Mona Radler and myself are familiar with that drug-induced effect where you're in the moment. Yeah, it's like kind of like riding a horse or skiing or something like that. There was a one time when I was with a friend of mine. Now, in this case, the individual happened to have been, for lack of a better word, a skinhead. Now, obviously, the racism of many such groups is pronounced, and the racism or lack thereof of other groups is not really emphasized. But he was basically on drugs with myself, and we were confronted with a very rocky hillside that at some point during our travels, where he basically, when I said, well, there's no way we're going to walk down that, and he said, well, it's like skiing. You just kind of like, just basically let it go with the flow, and just kind of like skid down there. Now, somehow or another, we both made it to the bottom of that hill without injury, which, by the way, don't ever try that. I don't recommend that to kids at all. But I think our world is a lot like that when we learn to go with the flow of the moment. Whether you're horseback riding, the horse is always in the present moment. So an equestrian.
They got their own mindset too, Douglas. You know that because I had an Arabian named Prince, and he knew that he could get me.
Yeah.
There was no, because I believe they're sentient beings. They are other life forms that are here to teach us and to help us as well. But yeah, horseback ride, man. But I miss the back of a hog.
Yes, I can imagine. That's something else in the present moment. Why is it you can't ride on a motorcycle
Just
anymore?
no opportunities. And if my life has been so filled of, yeah, we're going to do this and it not happening, that I don't listen to people anymore because they can't even be accountable for their words and their actions. And, that's one reason why I respect you, because I know you do.
Oh, well,
You
thank
stand in your light because you've got that spirit of true creatorness.
Yes. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, certainly one of the things that you and I were confronted with was for a while there, while I was involved with my former manageress, her policy was not to allow with interviews with other Revolution Radio hosts and hostesses. Obviously, she's a thing of the past now, and
Yeah,
we're
that
in the
was
present
sad.
moment.
The whole
Yeah.
situation. And, we don't need to dwell on it because you have done better for yourself now.
Well, I appreciate that. Yes. And, well, one of the aspects of doing better for myself is, of course, making myself available to yourself, for instance. And we are here now to kind of discuss things that I don't usually discuss, which would
That's
be.
why I'm here.
Yes. Yes. Now, in terms of. I would say that I was here at this present moment to kind of be part of this change of consciousness. Now, the very term Revolution Radio, as you said, we're all kind of souls that have met at this particular venue for a reason. The physics term for revolution would be, of course, revolving. That would be as in the revolution of a planet, the turning of the world. So we have before us the turning of the social world around us as kind of a opportunity, a privilege, something that we're honored to be a part of, and we're bringing it to its next turn. And with part of that is a change in consciousness, a change in awareness. And I think that takes a lot of irreverence, which I think Mona Radler is very important in terms of carrying that out. And I'm very glad to be cooperating with her in this venture in that regard. And hopefully we'll speak to her, other times in the future as well about such things. But yeah, that's what comes to my mind at the moment. Now, of course, there's always the concept of simultaneity of time, and that there really is no chronological time, that everything that's happening now is happening simultaneous to anything that has ever happened in history or will happen in the future. And when one thinks on those terms and develops a different kind of lifestyle because they're forced to, as I've been forced to, as literally, for lack of a better term, as I've coined the phrase, kind of sedentary fugitive. I basically,
right.
Yeah, I've basically been forced to live a life that is not at all conventional. So because my life is not conventional, I don't have the same parameters of scheduling that many people have. That's why when I'm scheduled for 9 a.m. in the morning Pacific time, which is high noon Eastern time, it's rather traumatic for me. But I'm surviving. but other than and now it was easier actually in terms of my biorhythms and my physiology, my sleep patterns. Yesterday I was with Christine Joanna Hart, who's hostess on Revolution Radio's
Mondays
Studio A.
and Fridays.
Yeah, Queen of Heart. My opening and closing the week, and she basically was at 6 a.m. in the morning my time, which is actually easier for me because that's before my biorhythms begin to totally, shut down. But in your case, you've got me while I'm kind of wide open in the mind, and I think that's fitting. I think that's appropriate. And when I was speaking of that simultaneity of time that we can go into in a moment, if that's the direction you want to go into, as a personal experience, to compare myself to other whistleblowers or public informant is the term that I use for myself. People like Julian Assange recently, for instance, is under house arrest. What? He's in the Ecuadorian embassy, and he was surrounded by British police officers on a regular 24-hour-a-day watch or patrol that were ready to pounce on him should he be caught leaving that Ecuadorian embassy, which is, of course, Ecuadorian soil, technically, on British soil. And they would turn him over to the United States for torture and interrogation at Guantanamo.
Probably just sacrifice for the rule of law. This country knows no different Douglas, and I really don't want to go there, but you know what you do the service like we all do the services, we're trying to help unprogram the mindset of that commonality that people have been fed full of just bullshit to the point where what we've learned is not factual.
Well, there's
And
that. There's that, and I thought that in terms of kind of putting that into context for people, the reason
mhm,
why I brought him up was not to compare myself to somebody who is far better known due to media concentration. The media focuses on him because of how little he's exposed. There's very little that Julian Assange has exposed. He's very
mhm.
much a distraction and a controlled
It seems
leak.
like a Snowden thing where we're going to put this person in this position and then put them somewhere else where they're actually working for both sides.
Where they're just basically doing nothing. But try for a moment to project oneself into the position of where he's at, and you
Mm-hmm.
would begin to realize how unconventional a lifestyle he leads. He's basically stuck in a cell that has hot and cold running water and some amenities, but his life is no longer subject to scheduling. His life becomes basically a series of sleep patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's why I brought it up. I live very similar to that. One doesn't need to be stuck in an embassy like Assange. One doesn't need to be stuck in Moscow like Snowden,
Snowden. Mhm.
appropriately enough named Snowden, since he's surrounded by snowbanks at this point in his life for the rest of his life, and one doesn't need to be like poor Chelsea Manning, who is in a concrete hole for the rest of her life, the former Bradley Manning, a fellow Marine. One doesn't need to be stuck in these horrible situations that are blatantly and overtly basically a kind of stranding, a kind of incarceration or detention. In my case, I suffered the same fate. It's just that I'm in San Francisco, and even though I have quote unquote a apparent ability to leave my home, I'm surrounded by nonstop telephone pole work that I bring up every once in a while as a running joke because it's the constant nemesis of my neighborhood. They are constantly and chronically and still are tearing down and reinserting telephone poles. And I have the most advanced series of telephone poles in the United States surrounding. And then when I
You should
walk
feel
out,
honored, right?
well, there is that. I mean, you could consider yourself flattered. And whenever I try to speak to the people who are involved with the telephone pole work, I mean, honestly, I'm turning around right now and kind of like peering out my window at the telephone pole that's closest by, and it's really a joke because whenever I approach these people, they have the look in their eyes, this faraway look of like religious cultists, and
Oh,
I'll ask them some questions as to exactly why they're doing this or what they're doing because there's never any significant apparent outward external change to the appearance of the telephone poles. There's never any new shiny equipment or anything that looks like it's high technology. It's always the same corroded, very rusty looking little pegs and what look like wastebaskets that that contain various cables and wires. And
right.
they'll just say, well, we've got a lot of company contracts, that are involved with these telephone poles. And I'd say, like what companies? NSA, DOD, CIA, FBI. It's just ridiculous. There's no point in even trying to conceal it, which is why I guess they're all kind of all doped out of their
Um,
minds and going through these motions like it's some kind of religious ritual. But, that's the kind of life that I lead, and I don't have
I
any.
apologize for laughing, but you know what? I've been to San Francisco, and it really is an interesting power spot. But if you're actually witnessing these empty shells that are supposed to look like humans, you have any shungite around? Heck, I need to send you some shungite, buddy. We'll get them EMFs off you. Oh, that's
Oh,
just pathetic.
yes, well, I appreciate that. And I want to concentrate on things that were fairly innocuous in that respect, but to get people kind of into the groove, so to speak, of what I experience on a day-to-day basis, there's no regular scheduling here. I tend to sleep in the daytime, which is the basis of years and years of working night shift, and I awaken at night when I'm most alert, and I'm awake through the night. again, the product of years of night shift, whether security, mercenary work. Most combat takes place at night. Modern warfare is very much a nighttime operation. We have, of course, the years I did at the Department of Defense, dealing with a lot of document collation and destruction. We had, of course, years of taking care of my parents as a care provider during the final decade of their life on Earth, and I was up all night, every night, and pretty much up most of the day as well. That was pretty much 11 years without any conventional period of sleep. It was just horrific, and I was quite malnourished. And since then I've gained weight, I've gotten a lot more rest, gone back into a sleeping pattern that suits me, which is mostly daytime sleep. We recently had, of course, a triple assault on that biorhythm, which has left me the way you hear me now with Mona Radler, which is why it's so appropriate that I'm with her and she kind of nurses me back into the chronometric time that I was in before, because she kind of interfaces between cosmological and chronometric. But yeah, kind of.
Just don't ask me to solve one of the problems, on paper, because I'm not a third-dimensional individual mostly, right?
Yeah, 3D enough where she's here on time for her program, so that's what's important. So she's here on time. She's able to fit that in, and she produces for herself, which I could never do. So she's remarkable in that regard. And you saved, of course, you saved the ass of Revolution Radio the other day when the Skype collapsed. It was Mona Radler who was riding it out, got here through one of the video channels, I believe, onto Revolution Radio and kept us on the air.
Well, I give thanks to Mike Ringley. He was on top of it. He really is the master of his control board, mechanically and tech-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad the two of you worked together in that, and it worked out for the best. And so, with that in mind,
how'd you like my promo?
Your promo's great. Yeah. Oh, you mean the one on YouTube?
No, well, I did put my promo, but don't you just love it? I mean, he put that together, and I think it's the best promo ever.
Oh, bless you. Oh, bless you. Yeah, no, I want you to continue using that. Now, I've done this for Mona before, of course, during her birthday and whatnot. I've done some promos for her, but let's run with this one for a while, and she definitely deserves it. She's a person who rates such. Now, to kind of finalize what I was saying about the unusual nature, so people get a bit of the surrealism involved here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, about time and the kind of timelessness I live in. Despite the fact that, quote unquote, I'm free and have earned my freedom by the collateral that I hold against the powers that be, namely the military junta, which runs the United States government, your government, my government, the government of all tax-paying Americans. We basically have a situation, a balance of terror, if you will. But thanks to rent control, I'm able to afford to live in San Francisco, where not for rent control, of course, I would be another homeless veteran or living someplace else conceivably. But the reality is that since I am able to basically dwell here or reside here, exist here or subsist here, shall I say, the thing that I'm faced with is, of course, there's very little money to do anything else. And as a result, much of what I do is essentially homebound. There's very little to go out for in the city because the city is so filthy. It's just unlivable. And try to describe that. You've been here. You've been here before. How long has it been since you last?
I was there. I did a whole West Coast sabbatical in 2010. Mm-hmm. I started up at Eugene, Oregon, and went all the way down to LA.
Wow.
And when I was in San Francisco, I love that big mountain in the middle. But I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive it because I lived in Florida 50 years, okay? That's very flat. Yes. To drive through that area was not an easy task, okay? Interstate, fine, but otherwise other driving, oh my flipping gosh. But we were on the third floor, and of course we had to have our cigarettes, so we opened the window, and all you could smell was urine.
Yeah.
From the third floor.
Yes.
And then when we went to Haight-Ashbury, is that how you say that? That street? Okay.
Haight-Ashbury, also known as the Hashberry. Yeah.
Right. But I didn't find any, okay?
Yeah. The famous hippie center where, of course, we have, narcotics, rehabilitation, free for the general public because it's necessary, because so much of the general public needs narcotic rehabilitation in San Francisco.
The pharmaceutical companies, I don't even want to get involved in that right now because we're going to go to a break real soon. But as we drove through there was a lot of temples, Masonic, and that when we went straight down the Hayes Ashbury, however you say it, there was people, but nobody had bags. I've been in retail a lot of decades. And when people aren't walking around with packages, then the retailers are losing.
Yeah.
And this, 2010, we went in LA, Douglas, they had, I want to cry now, homeless people sitting in wheelchairs straight out of the hospital, plus the vets and everything else, living on the Walk of Stars, bathing in the fountains.
Yeah.
And that you could not wear a colored bandana because of the side of the street you're on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the gang, she's referring to that. Also, there's the fact that you bring up a real memory. I mean, I think we've given people enough of an idea of how there's a timeless sense of incarceration or detention to my existence, despite my ability to walk the streets. There being the imposition of the fact that there's nothing to walk out for. Now, Mona mentioned a mountain in the middle of San Francisco. There are multiple mountains in the middle of San Francisco. I believe what she's probably referencing is the most visually striking, which would have Coit Tower on top of it. So that would be Telegraph Hill. But I live on top or near the top of Russian Hill. And of course, we have multiple other hills, which they built a gridwork of roads upon, which is what makes San Francisco the satellite city of Los Angeles, because all of Hollywood's films usually or traditionally have included an obligatory car chase. And the car chases are filmed in San Francisco for obvious reasons. The hills, the scenery provides a visual stimulus, and the middle of the street is really the only clean part of San Francisco. Nobody is going to take a crap in the middle of the street because they'll be hit by a car.
You mean where all the trolley car lines are?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find that album of pictures I took, and so you can see what my adventure was, because it was amazing. And we're going to have our first break now, Douglas, so we'll be right back in a few shakes of whatever we got to shake, okay?
Ha! Ha! Ha!
Welcome back. Oh, if you guys have gone to the homepage and you haven't come in to chat yet, you really need to. There's so many different conversations going on. And, sometimes we might take one way or another thing, and we just might see it not in the realness of its intent. And so we all have to kind of be free to be encased in a building for a little while, but search within to see what really is happening here. We're not here to be robot structures of paper-pushing idiots. Well, maybe they want us to be. But I know that we can stand up in ourselves and say, F you! Because if we don't, look what's happened already. How much more don't you want? Okay? So, please, anyway, we are here at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, Adventures of a Feral Hippie, and do the donation thing. And if you do, $50 is a silver bar. Put in all applicable information for return. And same with the $75 donation, it's a baseball cap. I really would love a whole outfit of Revolution Radio. I'd go panhandle just for the heck of it. You know what I mean? So welcome back, Douglas.
Thank you. By the way, I love the promo as well as you do. Mona Radler wrote in the text box while we were, experiencing the promotionals and we were both on mute, that she loved the promo and the fact that it was for my programs, and she loved the fact that it was on at her hour. And I'm impressed as well. That's the first time I've ever heard it. Has that been on
really?
for some time? I've never heard it before.
Okay, it's on. Yeah, normally it's every day at this time that I hear it. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I have never heard it before, so that's great. I'm glad to see that that's been going on for quite some time, and I'm impressed and I appreciate it. I'll take it as my birthday present. Speaking of which, I do want to give a shout out to a former Revolution Radio hostess. I don't know if she's still involved with us, Pamela Tartar, and she was, I think, going to the point of legal blindness, and but she was around, and she was one of the first people to interview me back when I was originally on and just started with Revolution Radio, and I was performing some interviews with other hosts and hostesses for a short period of time. And so she was one of the people to interview myself, who was on Revolution Radio and doing Revolution Radio with another Revolution Radio host. Another person, of course, who did that was Kat Jenkins, who has been of enormous help to the station. And Mona Radler, of course, knows her very well. But a shout out to Pamela Tarter, whose birthday was on Double 10 Day, or the Chinese national holiday for the Republic of China. And I definitely want to get back to what you were talking about, because I think it's so important. When you were talking about, just basically doing your sabbatical up and down the left coast of the North American continent, you had this situation where you could personally experience the uninhabitability or the filth of the city. And that takes us to two areas. We've got this kind of Ashbury clinic that you described, the Haight-Ashbury, and they had the drug clinic, or the free drug clinic, for many, many years. That was ever since the 1960s and the drug revolution that became identified with the culture, which was the period of youth for Mona Radler and myself, back when we had flower power and free love, and nobody had to worry about things
I
like...
haven't given mine up, okay?
Well, there you go, dear lady. and I'd like to think I haven't given mine up yet either.
There you go.
Of course, back then we didn't have to worry about AIDS and herpes. That was, this may be hard for young people to believe. I mean, we're in a generation where young people are, of course, taking blood tests when they want to get to know each other, if they have any sense of self-preservation. But back in the days of Mona Radler and myself, people were just throwing each other on top of each other. And, and there was no herpes simplex. There was no AIDS, which is now just HIV, of course. The term AIDS is barely used anymore because very few people get full-blown AIDS.
Well, because they do put it on their death certificates. It's called autoimmune deficiencies, and they label a lot of misdiagnosed deaths under that.
Thank you. That's good to know. And
I've helped a couple pass over.
Wow.
So I had to find out what it was, and that's what it was. And I'm like going, what? He had a kidney removed and cancer, and he was 90. Come on.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. Yeah. But when I was going to school in San Francisco, we had that Haight-Ashbury Clinic was a big part of education. What had happened was, to kind of give some perspective for people, I've talked about the timelessness of being a public informant. Now, part of the surrealism of my personal experience growing up, we had a situation that was impacted very heavily by the Vietnam conflict, which most people are entirely unaware of in terms of exactly what it did in terms of the home front in the United States. Its impact was incredible. Its impact on the economy was incredible. The popular culture people remember because that's the more pleasant half of it. A lot of hippies rolling in the mud at Woodstock and whatnot, and kind of being free with themselves. I mean, who wouldn't remember that with some form of nostalgia? But in terms of how it impacted education, what happened was a lot of well-intentioned and thoroughly misguided professors in upper educational levels got rid of a lot of the female instructors who had been teaching for generations and dominated the lower grades of education, which usually had female teachers teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic and taking their jobs very seriously.
Nurturing.
Yes, well, there's that, and or at least dominatrixes who were heavy-handed rulers and yardsticks, but nevertheless, they got the job done.
Exactly.
And what happened was that, of course, it turned out that you could evade the draft if you got involved with education. So what happened was many professors literally engineered and conspired to get rid of the females who dominated the American educational system, and they brought in a bunch of young draft dodgers. So we had people who might be considered physical cowards, at the least, if not moral cowards. And these individuals, of course, had no instruction in teaching. And so they basically took over at the time that I was going to school. And they knew nothing about reading, writing, or education. So what we learned was nothing against astrology, but we certainly didn't learn astronomy. We learned a lot of astrology. I
love astrology.
There you go. And but it doesn't necessarily get you employed.
I used to get some good money doing astrology.
Oh, no, I hear what you're saying. And believe me, there are thousands and thousands of dollars that are spent on very expensive computer programs for professional astrologers. And
I don't do anything by machine, darling, except this station and my Facebook account, because Yeah, it's all from spirit to heart to soul for the reality of that moment for what needs to be told to them.
Well, there's that, and then there's the astrologers who try to appeal to corporations or politicians,
Well,
and
it
those
works.
people, yeah, and those people tend to use machines because it impresses that particular clientele, and so, but you're coming at it from a much more organic, yeah, you're
Yeah,
coming
kind of.
yeah, organic perspective, which is appreciated. But it's kind of like the difference between homeopathic herbs and pharmaceutical manufacturing.
I was an herbalist. Well, I still kind of am, but not really, for 35 years.
No, no, I believe me, I know that, and I'm very impressed, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean,
It's just sad to see that everything had to become so mechanical. And I lived with a PTSD Vietnam vet husband. He was in Cambodia in a tank. He was lucky to get back alive. And
yes,
I was involved with a lot of veterans issues because I'm one of those women who would want to stand up and say, don't you think this could be different, like better? And of course, I got nowhere, but I've been up in front of a lot of council meetings and crap like that. Tell you what.
no, believe me, it's very much appreciated. Now,
Oh, nobody gave a flying whatsoever because everybody doesn't see. They drank the Kool-Aid, okay? The fluoride's in the water, the chemtrails are in the air. I still have people today telling me, yeah, you just do this, because they're in fear of it. Like the microwave ovens. Oh, gosh. Everybody's just out to hurt themselves and be programmed through the TV, through these electronics, through the surveillance. What the are they going to get out of it? I use Scott brand 2-ply toilet paper. Thank you.
Right. The veteran from the Indo-China conflict, the second Indochina conflict, what Americans know as the Vietnam War, and what Vietnamese know of as the American War. Was that the individual you were with when you were in San Francisco on sabbatical?
Oh, heck no.
Oh, I thought
I've had
so.
many life changes, darling. Trust me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, no. I mean, I
I had
understand.
three different children from three different fathers, and it was my son's father in the middle. And I was raising a stepson and a daughter. And,
aren't you glad you replaced them all with a duck?
it's a goose, darling.
It's a goose.
It's a
Sorry,
goose.
I'm
And
sorry.
no, well, it's funny. Ha, ha, ha. I'm very proud of my children, except for my son, because of the damnation that war brought. It brought demons back with them, let alone the lion, the crap that they flippin' literally just had to try to digest because they were living a lie. We can't live these lies anymore, Douglas.
Right. Well, no, I'm here to help with that. Yeah. Definitely yeah. And in terms of your past experiences, believe me, I meant absolutely no disrespect.
Well,
it's
I
just
know,
that
and it's all okay.
Yeah. When I think of kids, I think of something just like to me, I would rather die than be siring or caring for children because I'm just totally incapable.
I was the only woman I have so many surrogate daughters because they couldn't trust anybody, so they'd bring me their babies because I'm just a big kid at heart.
Right. No, that's
and I love life, and people can't handle that. And it's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, wow.
Yeah,
Not to say I can't be the in the.
Yeah. No, I understand. I see the warrior in you, of course, and it's appreciated. You're the feral hippie for a reason.
That's right.
Yes, I tried to portray that in the illustrations that have been affiliated.
And oh my gosh. To me, your art is better than chocolate. And I'm a chocoholic, okay? And I am so serious, sir, that it's just like, to me, I see your spirit, and it's gentle, but it's truthful. And it might just be black and white sometimes, but then again, here comes the color when it's needed. And, it's a whole story to me. I'm a commercial artist by trade. I have 3 degrees. I couldn't get a job doing any of them, so I had to make my organic existence because the universe said you're not going to get caught in that. You're not meant to be in that system.
Right. Well. Now, in terms of the herbalism, that should still be making a comeback.
No, because there's too many laws. I was grandmothered in St. Pete, Florida, for the decades I did it. In fact, I was one of the originals. Okay, and then everybody says, "Oh, I can make a quick, fast buck." So everything gets divided. It gets processed, colored, artificially enhanced flavored BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no truth, in fact, in the healing anymore. So you know what I found out?
What?
It's all by our true inner being of spirit that survives any dimension that we are here. So I just try to work with that.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's
The rest of the material stuff is just nummies to me. Everything is a blessing because I can enjoy it because I know the difference.
right. Right. Yeah. Well. I mean, I have an appreciation for some of what you're talking about at a visceral level for many reasons. One of them being that, yeah, like I was saying about that Haight-Ashbury drug clinic having this huge impact on local culture in San Francisco. When I went to school, of course, with all of these Vietnam draft dodgers, these guys who were teaching us, they introduced the curriculum specifically for these pseudo instructors of sex education and drug education, so that kids could get used to the concept of sex and drugs and unofficially astrology. And that
I really am for it all.
Yeah, I hear
Even
you.
if maybe at the same time, who knows?
Yeah, I've got nothing against sex, drugs, or astrology either myself, but
Okay.
it was a surrealistic experience in that when probably by the time we were in, I'd say about high school level, junior high school level, what they call middle school these days, we were watching instructional films that were produced at the Hashberry Free Clinic. And so we saw these instructors who were like Hashberry clinicians, who were basically people who had used a lot of drugs in their lives and then were counseling other people in recovering from really bad trips or drug abuse and a lot of collateral damage from it. By abuse, I mean overdosing, etc., just poisonous or toxic substances that are mixed with the drugs. And comparatively speaking, in those days, it was relatively simple compared to the massive complex chemical chains that people put together today. But people, of course, still were very damaged by particularly lysergic acid, various trips involving that. And of course, it was heroin. So I remember when I was very young and we were watching these instructional films, we'd have some bearded little gnome who looked like, some escapee from Trollhaven. And he would basically be telling us on the screen, don't look in your classmate for where he's shooting up because he might be a real expert and he'll be shooting up in veins you don't even know exist. For instance, they try under the head of the penis, pull back the foreskin if the guy has ones, and insert the needle there so that nobody looks there. And by the way, this is what we were getting in middle school. So this was a very surrealistic education.
Isn't that just something?
Well, it was.
Was it in print too?
Well, the reason I bring that up is not because it's, I guess in a sense it is traumatic.
Hey, I believe circumcision is a taking the power away of the male that does not deserve.
That's it. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy around circumcision. Yeah, I've never been circumcised. Because
it goes from a penis to a phallic, and the guys really who put all those opsculus, however you say that word, those big old towers that mean nothing, but they're made of the finest ingredients, because it's all just a play and a show.
Well, a lot of it is just leaving a mark on the American, shall I say, cattle, just by the medical industrial complex. And so it's kind of like branding them. And I think that, the Americans deserve it because they tolerated it. I was born in Asia, so I never experienced that. When I entered the Marine Corps, as a matter of fact, when I went through the medical processing, because I had never been circumcised as a child, they actually put me on display. They had me stand up. They gathered all the doctors around, all the rest of the recruits, and had me stand there for several hours because everybody just wanted to look at my penis. This is like, the stupidity of the world we live in. But they had never seen an uncircumcised penis before. None of these people. So it's just extraordinarily common.
The 50s really messed up this country.
I think the country's been messed up since the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. Yeah, but it's just been getting worse and worse. But, to get back to the surrealism of being a whistleblower, a public informant, once again, there's a nowhere man effect. And this is why I kind of went through the school detour there for a second, talking about that schooling there. Of course, when I ultimately went to the vocational equivalent of a high school, which was John O'Connell Vocational Institute, we were talking about what was supposed to prepare people for employment, a school that would teach a trade. And the reason I went into that school was because my family was so poor. I wanted to get to work as soon as possible to earn some money, and the higher grade of education didn't look like it was going to be very hopeful or helpful. And when I entered there, of course, it turned out to be an experiment and failure because John O'Connell Vocational Institute. There's another a school by that exact same name, which is located in a different part of San Francisco today, is not the same school. The original John O'Connell Vocational Institute was demolished. They demolished the school because my high school instructor in commercial illustration was Gary Willard Hambright, who was a convicted child molester.
Oh,
so
gosh.
this individual kept his pornography, his child pornography, on site the school, quote unquote, as art references. So he didn't have a home. He was homeless. He was an ordained Southern Baptist minister without a pulpit. And he lived in his church. He lived in the church that he served in. And he couldn't keep his porn there, probably because, all the other priests would steal it. So he kept it at school. And ultimately, that's how I got him busted. He was busted for keeping child pornography on site, a San Francisco Unified School District property. So SFUSD, which was the acronym for San Francisco Unified School District. But in order to hide that evidence, ultimately the entire John O'Connell Vocational Institute on Treat Street and Haight Street, the Bryant Street, between all those areas in the Mission District was demolished. Now, the same thing happened to the Presidio military base when I blew the whistle on the child daycare center scandal that occurred there. And that, too, was demolished. So into all of the Letterman Army Medical Center, where 25% of the United States Army's doctors were trained, was torn to the ground. The Presidio Postal Library, etc. Much of the child daycare center was burned to the ground. The records for the child daycare center were kept at the community center, which was burned to the ground. Everything was burned to the ground and bulldozed, torn up to the root, the same thing happened with the John O'Connell School. So there's this nowhere man effect. Wherever I've been, they've entirely demolished architectural evidence that these facilities even existed.
You're kidding? Really? They went that far back?
Yeah, they went that far back. Yeah, so that really, people need to understand that when I say, yeah, I'm a public informant, I've done an enormous amount of damage, I've cost thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, 20s of thousands, scores of thousands of people their jobs. That's exactly what happened with the closing of the Presidio military base, the demolition of the John O'Connell Vocational Institute, many other infrastructural facilities that were impacted by my whistleblowing. So I've done far more damage than Assange or Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning, or, of course, Edward Snowden.
Did somebody have a sex change?
Yeah, you mean one of my former escorts somewhere along the line? We could go in that direction.
But no, because I've witnessed it, and I try not to judge and try not to placate into somebody else's illusion.
Yeah, well, she was a young lady who now, as a whistleblower, of course, I can't have any intimate relation in any conventional sense, because that's just someone else in my life that would be threatened and would ultimately, likely, statistically, have a great deal of chance of coming to harm. And
did you ever see the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
No.
Oh,
never.
You gotta find it. It's Julia. Two big actors, man, and they don't realize that they're each undercover kind of hit people, and they take care of business. And you know what? You got to watch it, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Look at if you have Netflix, find it. You'll love it. You'll fall in love with this movie. That's not the one with
Jack Nicholson, is it?
Oh no! It's the two that got married, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Oh, okay. That's not. That's not Gigli, is it?
I don't know, honey. I'm not. Hey, look, I was also adjudicated here in the Americas of the whatever states. So we've got a short top of the hour break, sugar. We'll be back real quick.
Yes.
Well, again, here we are at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, and its adventures of a feral hippie. Gosh. What is the problem? Why do we have to designate love as why don't we just have it? Why do we have to say, I'm just Mona. I didn't pretend to be these ways. This is just me. I do love all my labels, though. And in chat, and you should go to the homepage because you're going to donate, right? And then in chat, because it's got the line hole there, you can get to anywhere. That homepage is so full of great stuff. Okay, I just lost my train of thought. That's okay, because what day is it? Tuesday?
Yeah. Which means I've got a show tonight, which means I'll probably be dead meat in the water.
Oh, don't talk like that. You're going to talk yourself into it. Use your power for yourself, young man.
Yes, that's you're quite the motivational speaker, and it's appreciated. But just out of curiosity, you mentioned something about catering into other people's delusions. Obviously, in San Francisco, I have been forced to accommodate the community that goes into all directions in terms of sexual identity, gender orientation. There's various subcultures and communities that are literally almost indescribable to your average person that we stereotype as emerging out of Peoria, for instance. So when you were speaking of the sex change, is that something that as a person who survived the 60s, that not that I'm defending or advocating that people should get sex changes. Obviously, I don't think it's anything that would be, how would I say it, something anyone should take for lightly. Obviously, that would be one of those decisions that one would hope would be life-changing and not something that would happen constantly. But do you felt that that's somehow dysfunctional in general, or just curious? Or
just to the ideology, I've dealt with a lot of different people, because when I had my herb store, I became a counselor.
Right.
People, I mean, I had so many dialogues and dialects of human beings come to me because the universe was like pre-training, okay? And when they found out I did tarot and other stuff like that, and I tried to keep it all hidden because I did have a Baptist background at one time too. And
sorry to hear that.
I know, right?
No, that's fine. I'm sorry.
No. I have so many great little adventures of my life, and that I've survived, and I feel okay about it. And I've only been there for others to know that they can talk to me, because there's a lot I've been through, and I'm going to be honestly on the same page unless I haven't been through that. But I can still see through the cataloging of the idea of if we're worth it or not. And some notion that gets taken in that I'm wrong and I'm not here for me to be me. Just kind of, what a waste of good energy. I've known some great gays. And they've been some of my best friends. Just things like that. And time changes. But when it gets to the point, if I'm not trying to make myself better, then that's not why I should be here. Then I shouldn't be here. If I'm not trying to make myself better.
Right. No. I think I see what you're saying. Is that
in an organic manner? Because the rest of this is like shooting ass flipping fat into your lips, so your lips are bigger. I've seen so many cosmetic situations and stuff like that I'm just like over it.
Right.
Look what they did to Joan Rivers.
Yes. She's dead now, isn't she?
Well, yeah, because she got accused of saying that, or no, people think because she brought out the truth, and even though she's a comedian, she should have been able to say it, that our Prez is gay and that Michelle is a Michael.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah.
I never heard that.
And yesterday I posted a thing on Facebook that says if we say anything wrong about Obama, he's going to come for our rear ends. Like, how many presidents don't get this kind of crap? The journalism and tough line of power play of control of what the real words are that are getting out there.
Right. No, I mean, I see what you're saying. It's just that I guess one of the things that might be considered a disadvantage on my part is that my envelope of tolerance is quite extremely high. I have a very high envelope of tolerance just
If
on the
you're a
basis.
human being first, Douglas, that's why I like you. And why I like most people is because I look at the human first. I don't give a flying leap about the rest of the stuff, because if you have an issue, I'll see what I can do to help you. That's all I'm here for in life, it seems.
No. I mean, so that people don't misinterpret what we're saying. In terms of, I'll give you an example. When I started in security work, and this was, of course, after the Department of Defense, stuff was going to go nowhere. When after being basically an informant, someone who had leaked information, obviously I was not going to be trusted with any government job ever again. So what I did was I segued into the
They
private.
should have hired you because they're just like that. Go ahead.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, your average government worker, just to give people some perspective on this, is somebody who does absolutely nothing. I mean, they go to work and that's all they do. And you're lucky if they do that. Many of them don't even show up for work, but they get paid. And so, I could go on and on about the corruption, their incompetence, the laziness, the sloth, just nothing works with the government. Nothing is getting done. The only reason that the social infrastructure hangs at all is based on the delusion, and it's an utter illusion that people have. It's a hallucination. It's a mirage. It doesn't exist at all. It's entirely ephemeral. But they honestly believe the government is working, and so these poor people, these deluded.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Yeah, of course.
What's ephemeral mean? What did you say?
Ephemeral. It would mean that it's peripheral. It's not. It's
all
not,
in the state of the sight of the vision.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
there's
just
that.
trying to get.
So it's not centripetal to your existence, or it's basically something that is illusory. That's what that would tend to imply. So we're in this situation where people actually believe the delusion. It's like this is part of the matrix or the shared delusion that they have a government that somehow works. They don't believe that it works to their interest, but they believe that somehow it's working to its own interest. Well, the truth is it's not working at all. There's nothing working. So every day you look out that window, I've said this before, if you don't see mass rape and cannibalism, every day that you don't see that when you look out an office window or the window of your residence in a major city, then it's a good day. You have no idea how fine a line we are before we cross that line, which could be any second of any day. I mean, it's that bad. There's nobody in government doing
Well, you know why, too, now. Because it's being fed by all the refugees and other things that are being transported around into those conditions to make the situations where shit's going to hit the fan.
Well, that would do that without any refugees. But
I mean, the dirty puddles are getting bigger because they keep adding shit to it.
Yeah, well, there's that, and believe me, there's plenty of people leaving the United States too. Have been leaving for quite some time. Recently, of course, there's been some big deal made about the Asian immigration is now overwhelming the Latin American immigration. One would get the delusion by reading that the way it's presented that, oh wow, Asians must be swamping the United States. They just must be coming over here from the Pacific. 40 million boat people from Japan because of Fukushima Daiichi. Of course, they're all resettling here on the Pacific coast. Of course, it's all a load of crap. There's no Asians coming here. It's simply the fact that the Latin Americans stopped coming. And because the Latin Americans stopped coming, then they can say, well, look, there's more Asians here coming than Latin Americans. And so people get this delusion that there's a sudden influx of Asians coming into the United States. It's a joke. I mean, the Asian population in the United States, as an Asian Pacific Islander American, of course, I can tell you this with some degree of conviction and knowledge, is non-existent. There's
okay, but now what about the corporations that are here and having to need to get their payments paid in full? Because that's part of the illusion too, is all this banking system crap. And who really owns what land and property? Because none of us do here. Not by the rule of the laws any longer.
Well, I don't know if that ever was the case. I mean,
Yeah,
the U.S. government, of course, has always reserved the right, just like they do in communist China, to nationalize or seize private properties. They did so in the Second World War. That's what Americans fought for. This is often why I say Americans deserve everything they get because this is what they fought for. This is what they stood for en masse. Not necessarily as individuals, but there were damn few individuals who ever stood against it. So for all intents and purposes, yeah, demographically, statistically, the Americans fought for total government power in World War II. That's what they get, and then they bitch.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, it boggles my mind. But to give you an example again of the security work I was doing, the reason I had to have a high tolerance for
Smut.
well, there's that. Yeah, I guess we could say that. Yeah, when I started, there was that element as well. The professional pornography industry had an enormous. What consisted or comprised an enormous part of the San Francisco Greater Bay Area regional economy. And of course, we had many other people here besides oh God, I'm trying to remember their name now. They wound up killing each other. One killed the other. And oh God, I don't remember their name. A couple of Jewish brothers, the Mitchell brothers. They ran a adult entertainment facility in San Francisco that I never worked at, though I applied there in a security position. More than once, several times, and then but I wound up working with the Habib Karouba Samuel Conti partnership. Habib Karouba was Lebanese descent. Samuel Conti was your traditional Italian, and so when I was employed with them, I was exposed to a lot of the adult entertainment industry. Used to provide escort for many adult entertainers, actresses, and pornographic starlets and the like. Now, in terms of more conventional security, if we could call it that, I worked with a private
Right.
security company that was owned and operated by retired San Francisco Police Department officers. Now, it would take care of jobs that San Francisco Police Department didn't want traced back to itself. And so we would do security for a lot of, and they were making money hand over fist. We do security contracts with things like very large homosexual orgies. Now, the interesting thing was these people were so homophobic who were working with this organization. It was Executive Security and Investigations, which, thank God, no longer exists. But at that period of time, they had employed a lot of El Salvadorian emigres. And so these El Salvadorians were, like, believe it or not, 16 years old. And there was a law in San Francisco. There was a loophole where if you were under the age of 18, you could carry a gun in a security position so long as your parents signed a release or a waiver saying they would take responsibility for whatever your actions were.
Whoa.
So we had 16-year-old El Salvadorians who would otherwise be in death squads back in El Salvador, 16, 17-year-olds. And my biggest problem whenever commanding a detachment of these idiots is that all of us were in San Francisco Police Department uniforms, SFPD uniforms. The only difference was our badge and our patch. But we had honest-to-God badges. In other words, not some plastic badge you would see on a security guard or a patch in some high tower or some skyscraper or something. We had actual metal badges that could theoretically stop a bullet or help one ricochet off you from the right angle.
Ooh,
So,
baby, John Wayne slipped that thigh.
yeah, and we had, of course, genuine firearms. And so these people would go around trying to kill homeless people, trying to kill homosexuals. And my biggest job was constraining them from even ever carrying these, shall we say, objectives out. I mean, there's just crazy Roman Catholic fundamentalist El Salvadorian punks, teenagers. And so now no one would take the contracts. Now keep in mind, this is the SFPD run, private corporation. And nobody would take the contracts for the gay orgies. And I was the only person. I said, well, I can interact with the gay community. I don't have a problem in that. I'm secure in my sexuality. They're not going to, I don't feel myself somehow degraded by working with them. And I was the only mofo because I could tolerate the gay community and because I could just basically interact with them without trying to kill them, then I was the only guy who was given those contracts. And in the end, they said, oh, Douglas Dietrich does the gay contracts. They said, give me the gay contracts. So just simply because I could interact people without pulling a gun on them.
I know, right?
This is what I was given was these contracts just by default. That all of this is just wretched. So when when I'm talking about this incredible envelope for tolerance that I have, then I do hope people understand that in context, it is a professionally developed attribute But in terms of later on, when I became a full-blown public informant, and could never hope for a conventional employment, could never hope for a conventional lifestyle in terms of some intimate relationship. Yes, all of my relations physically have been with professional escorts. Now they're female. One of them that Mona Radler brought up ultimately got herself a sex change, and so I
I've just seen the pain of the unreality of their
right.
being inside.
What
That's
you're
all.
saying, I get what you're saying. What you're saying is that someone shouldn't have to change themselves physiologically to find peace.
I've seen some great looking, the transvestites. And if you have both sets of equipment, play to whatever the heck you want to play to, okay? I have no issue with that. In fact, they're fun to party with. But
What
I'm
I've come
serious.
to, well, believe it or not, and I do emphasize this to people, and I think a lot of people forget, is that I am traditionally and culturally a conservative. I was born in the Nationalist Republic of China, which is a fascist nation. We are a fascist nation politically and economically. Our salute at various ceremonies is the Roman salute. We give the fascist salute, as you would see in fascist Italia or the time of the Third Reich. That is still the salute in the Nationalist Republic of China as relocated to Taiwan. So I come from that background, and one of the reasons that one of my fellow Taiwanese directors he directed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Then he went on to do this horrible Hulk movie, and then he went on to do Brokeback Mountain. Now, this is all the same director. He's this Taiwanese guy. And the reason that he had to do Brokeback Mountain in the United States was if he tried to do some movie like that in Taiwan, they would have strung him up by the balls and just let him hang until he died. And I can understand that too. But this individual came to the United States. He almost wins these awards for doing Brokeback Mountain by portraying it among whites. And because he's gay, which is why he did this film, he did this horrible Hulk film, which, of course, is just disgusting. I mean, it has all of these homoerotic insinuations throughout the film. It is certainly nothing that any young, straight male would find in any way, shape, or form interesting.
Yeah, but they're changing the hormones through the food,
the
polluted milk, the vaccinations, the air that we breathe. I had a question for you, sweetheart, from chat.
Oh God, you're kidding. You mean they're doing something else besides exchanging pot recipes? Or
I took pictures of my recipes. Anyway, somebody asked what you meant by tolerance. And I think it's a person that doesn't live in this country.
Yeah, well, what am I supposed to mean by that? I would think that would be pretty self-evident.
It sounds like you did pretty darn well. But
yeah, I think
wouldn't you like every now and then to have drawn that gun, Power Man? Kaboom! Yeah, you spit on the sidewalk. I'm shooting your head off. I mean, oh my God.
To put this into some perspective, then, for that individual who asked, going back to my conservative cultural heritage, I would take the attitude, and this is the best that we can come up with as an ad hoc kind of, nothing is perfect when it comes to these issues, and we can only do the best we can until something better comes along. But honestly, the best that I could have come up with after my, come October 20th, I turn 49 years of age, this side of the ID line, this side of the international date line. On west of the international date line in the Pacific, I'm 50 years old. I'm half a century old because in Asia, you're born a year old when you emerge out of the womb.
Makes sense to me.
But in terms of half a century of living, approximately 49 years over here in the West, what I can tell you is that I've come to the conclusion.
Would have been your east, though, darling.
Yeah, the east of the ID line, yes. That's right. That's right. Yes, you've got that right. And now, and whoever doesn't understand the international date line, by the way, it's not what people think, and it's not. I don't think anyone ever thinks about it. But the reality is, it's pretty ad hoc in and of itself. It's a line through the middle of the Pacific that they they put an enormous dent in. That doesn't make any sense to incorporate the island of Kiribati, which is a group of island nations that have been assimilated into one administrative block. With a lot of American influence, and Kiribati has this huge bulge, like a erect phallus that just comes right through the middle of that international date line towards America, and that's all under the same day. So, in other words, they arbitrarily bent the date line just to keep one nation
I'm
on the
sure the
same.
planet feels so much better.
Oh God, yeah, it's just a big fu in the Pacific. It doesn't make any sense, and it's got to stop. I mean, that's got to be corrected. That's just crazy. It doesn't. Anyhow,
What's the
but
radiation from the Japan? The lubricant?
well, something like that. Well, there's plenty of radiation. I mean, people concentrate on that, and I keep trying
Mhm.
to educate them. What the Americans pumped out in the Pacific makes that look like nothing. So, in terms of the what I was saying about tolerance, we have
Mhm.
basically, what I've come to the conclusion of is that until someone is of legal age, which in the West we've concluded to be around 18 years of age, so 18 or 21 years of age, but at the earliest 18 years of age and at the latest 21 years of age, really until that period of time, we can say that if someone feels that they're gay or if someone feels that they need a sex change, really they should be discouraged and
Mhm.
they should be provided counseling and they should be provided alternatives. And it could even be diagnosed, well, particularly with the idea of sex changes, because that is such a monumental surgical commitment.
Oh
They should
yeah.
be given the option of medical or pharmaceutical treatment as opposed to that surgical change until they're of legal age. Now, once they're of legal age, and if someone still feels like, well, I'm really of a different gender that's trapped in this physiology, or if I really feel I'm attracted to people of the same sex, then they should be let go on their own accord to decide which direction they take their life.
Though, most people have had to have a situation that occurred that made their mindset at a very early time where they didn't recognize their conscious, subconscious, super subconscious, direct source conscious kind of stuff. And through the advertising, through everything, we're not
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
like what we have. We got
Well,
to
well,
change it.
Well, yeah, I agree with you that there is an enormous promotion of alternative lifestyles and a change of one's identity to the point of sex reassignment. And this is
AI,
being
honey,
promoted.
it's all going AI.
Yeah, that's. By the way, I don't know if you're. Did you know that the film AI, which was that Steven Spielberg
The
film,
little kid.
yes, I understand that. My point about that is the original plot for the film. The original point of the film consisted of the development of artificial children that were like living animate dolls or very sturdy holographs or interactive holographics that child predators are people who could not be counseled or dissuaded from in terms of child intimacy. Adults who were dysfunctional to the point where they were pedophiles or thrived off pederast porn. This was to provide them in the film within the conceit of the movie plot line.
Yeah, it
This
was.
to
It was a
provide them,
good movie.
yeah, a child with which to have sex with. Now I understand that was changed. I never saw the film. I understand
Oh,
they
really? You
changed.
should get Netflix, honey. Now there's 2 films
They,
you gotta watch.
yeah. They actually kept that plot line.
Oh, it was just, yeah, because it was the ones who seemed to be the derogatory or the smut ones had more of the answers because they saw through it, even though they were AI. And they were still running for their lives. And oh my gosh. And this innocent child comes in and just wants to be an innocent child. And because they took the programming off a living child that died. And it's like, oh my gosh.
So the
Yes,
film
you
was
really
that
should see these
was,
films. They're really good.
so you're saying that film stuck to the original plot line. I
I
understand.
remembered it when you brought it up.
Oh,
So
okay.
that meant something, yeah.
Okay. I understand that it was radically changed, so it was
I don't
probably
doubt it.
a lot harsher than the way that it was presented originally in terms of the plot line. But I get what you're saying.
Well,
I
but they
might review
can't
it. I
throw
might
it
not.
out there because it's all entertainment only. Remember that.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind. I
Like
mean,
the nano powder that, what was it? Not War of the Worlds. Keanu Reeves was in it. And he comes back and he tries to tell the planet that we better get our heads out of our asses or they're going to destroy it by this one nanobot that turns into zillions of little nanobots and eats everything in its way.
and
That
what
is
movie
in a
was?
negative fashion.
Yeah. What was the name of that film?
Oh, yeah, right. You're talking to Mona here. Somebody in chat might bring it up. Oh, gosh.
Speaking of all these children, I see a huge, just it's horrible. It's a collateral not to denigrate them or degrade them any further, but it's a collateral offal of a collapsing society. In San Francisco, you were talking about the Haight-Ashbury Clinic, the Haight-Ashbury District. The Golden Gate Park in San Francisco is loaded with homeless children. They're just children who come out of, you'll be driving your car by Golden Gate Park, and I don't own a car. I don't allow myself to drive because of my post-traumatic stress disorder. I trust myself with firearms, which are far less dangerous than an automobile. An automobile is just orders of magnitude statistically more dangerous than a firearm, and any cop can tell you this. And but I wouldn't trust myself behind a wheel because of the potential for road rage. But in terms of or just plain bad driving or accidents on my part. But when I'm in a cab or when I'm with someone else in an automobile, these kids will come up to the window and they're extraordinarily young. You're talking about people who are probably beneath legal age, 14, 15, 16, 17. And of course, you try to report it to the police can't do anything. They're just overwhelmed. But in terms of these children, it looks like the end of the road for them. I mean,
yeah, but what happened to the parents, okay? Because when we have really separated the true life cycle of the human being here as tribes, as groups, as neighbors, as families, they've disrupted the whole true reason of life here on this planet, Douglas. You know that.
Well, but the true reason not
because I can love everybody's child, okay?
Right. Yes.
I haven't had kids around me since 2010. But I mean, I have, but I haven't. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, to myself, that would be half a decade of bliss. But that's the different types of
It's different areas of growth because I was always responsible for everybody's kids. I was always the one taking and giving shelter.
Right.
And good knowledge of playtime. Not definite rules. You got to do this shit time because I was an elementary school teacher and I saw what they were doing in the schools. I could only imagine what's going to happen at home.
So you were an elementary school teacher yourself, so you must have related to what I was saying earlier about many of
it's sad, yeah. When they started handing me this is the criteria instead of the education that I got my degree for.
So you remember the switch to sex education and drug education.
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't you bring that up while I was talking about it?
I like to hear you talk.
No. I mean, that's appreciated. But
because things come when they're supposed to come on, it's like, no. People would, like you said, people would look at me, oh, she's just the pot-smoking hippie. She's got nothing. And I do. But I don't have those baggages to have to concern them with me now. But yeah, I went through all that. And I was even graduated high school early because of my points. And within 2 years, I got 3 degrees.
Right.
And I couldn't lie with my commercial artist because I'm not going to just try to sell somebody a lie. I couldn't. So I had to find something else. And then I did my architecture. And I went to contractor school and they wouldn't accept me because they were all men. And here I had my architecture degree. I could have helped, hey.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You have a degree. I always wanted, when I was young, if I had, been raised in the Nationalist Republic of China instead of being brought over here when I was young, it's very important for people to understand. I do not want to be here. I am stranded here. I don't want to be here. I would
but there's a reason. Just Well,
yeah. Well, I would infinitely prefer to be back in the island of Taiwan, underneath the Republic of China, where I feel much more comfortable. It's a sane society.
Smell the hemp burning right now.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd be.
It's a great insect repellent. A lot of places like that use hemp bark for their incense. So we're gonna be at the last break here, darling. So yeah, that too. Oh, it's been a joy.
It has been. It has been.
We will be right back. No. Okay, I'm trying not to let the giggle stick. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, we're both getting a contact high, so that's understandable.
Well, I just was thinking, because see, I go outside a lot because I don't smoke my tobacco in the house. So I get to see a lot of true loving life. And yes, I get to visit the goose. And she was, she did become something I needed to care for because life has gotten so ugly out there, stuck in the root chakra to the point where sacrificing each other. What the F is that stuff? I mean, come on. You out of most people know it's not right. And how can we keep letting this happen? It behooves me. And if I wasn't a victim, which I was also, so I can talk about this to the point of going, you can't let it take your life either. You got to stand up for yourself and your rights because this third dimensional occurrences of situations are here to learn from. Don't repeat them. Can't you get the drift? Oh, pardon me.
No. I think that's wonderful. I'm glad you expressed yourself. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've been impressed by is when you bring up, of course, the family and the disintegration thereof. Is you sound markedly conservative for someone who's a hippie along my my lines of thought. By the way,
wear many robes, right? So do you.
Yeah. We represent many facets of what ultimately works. Of course,
not
always
common.
What is that?
Definitely not common.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. Well, we're not common people in the sense of how we necessarily express ourselves. And that's what makes you, of course, valuable to of course, the insights that people can attain by kind of looking beyond, shall we say, parameters of agendas and chronometry, so to speak, the calendrical entrapment of time binding that entraps so many of us. Now, one of the things I was impressed by was, of course, your background in architecture, which I remember when you brought it up. And what I wanted to bring up was if I had been raised in Taiwan, the island China, the Republic of China is relocated onto the 100 Islands of Taiwan, which just had its national holiday, of course, on Double 10 Day, October 10th. If I had been raised there, I would have gotten an education that was encompassing arithmetic, reading, writing. I would have been either, because I do have an innate and natural baseline intelligence, I know I could have easily have become a medical doctor or what I really wanted to become, which was an architect. And so I certainly wanted to be an architect. That was it's a fanciful profession, and it's something that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, but they have a love of a system that is so fractal, and it puts many working hands to build it. It's not just slapped up into some shit house. I mean,
I appreciate that.
I've lived with many things of India and Chinese or Japan and seen, just by occurrences and friendships. So, yeah, I truly love the art. And I never could do the I Ching, though, because I just didn't want to put that in the same facilitation of just letting life be. Because, if you cover one thing only, you're stuck. I don't like being stuck.
Oh, right. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, the also, if I were an architect, I would have been much more concretized in my thinking processes to an extent. But because they didn't teach math, because they didn't teach writing, because they didn't teach anything in school other than sex, drugs, and astrology. What I grew up with was the second best.
And go teach the masses, right? Because you guys were the leading edge. Think about it.
There you go. I mean, we're both doing that now. This is obviously what we've become now. Is we've assumed the role of a kind of mentation process, a kind of mentoring process for an analysis, shall we say, circuit is what we have developed here at Revolution Radio, where we can provide a service to the public that will help them at least sort out much of the incoming stimulus.
Yeah, the deprogramming. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, there's deprogramming of what they've been behaviorally modified or conditioned to do, let alone accept or reject. Most of what Americans have is a process of profound rejection, because any
Yeah.
sort of acceptance, any sort of acceptance would imply a weakness. It would mean that
I know, right?
it would mean that they didn't know it. You see, so there's this insane facade that they promote and project that they already knew.
Wait
They
a
act
minute.
like they
Can we
already.
pound our fists or chest at the same time here? Woo!
Yes, that's right. Well, but because I didn't have the education mathematically or in terms of engineering, it just wasn't available through the American educational system, which didn't provide anything.
Right.
Then I had to take the second best form of expression in that regard, which was commercial illustration. So when I was trained in commercial illustration, of course, you apparently had a moral conundrum yourself of falsely portraying an image to sell something that you had no belief in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in my case, of course, I just wanted to make money for my family as soon as possible because
Well, why not?
poverty that we grew up in. So before I was of legal age to, technically of legal age to buy pornography, I couldn't legally do so, but they would have sold it over the counter to me anyway because nobody cared in that day and age. This was a totally different world back then. People don't remember that we had shopping centers or facilities like Lucky or, they were kind of like versions of today's Rite Aid and various kinds of markets up and down the coast here on the Pacific. Most certainly, I knew it was this way across train stops and bus stops all the way across the United States. We had various magazine stores that sold pornography just right on turntables where kids could go and pick it up and look at it. Nobody cared back in those days. We had comics like Marvel Comics producing heroes and heroines like Son of Satan
Conan the
and Satana, the
Barbarian.
Devil's Daughter. And
Frazetta was excellent, man.
yeah, Frazetta. There you go. Frank Frazetta.
Oh
was
my God, I love that
who
stuff.
basically was borderline pornographic illustration. He worked, of course, to an extent, very peripherally with the comics industry, but actually he was quite involved in the early days, and then he
Come
got
on,
involved.
didn't you want a hot rod with one of them women on it? Guys got it on their planes. It was just a different Betty Boopish. There's always been leg and tit showing, come on.
Yeah, well, that's what I began to specialize in, only I took it all the way with my illustration. So before I was of legal age to buy pornography, I was producing pornographic illustrations for underground comics. So that was how I made an enormous amount of income that I had at that time, a primary source of it. We're talking about back when I was 15, 16, 17 years old.
Right, you were just testing the waters. I get you.
Well, I was trying to make some money. And, of course, that ultimately changed as I, got other means of what I thought was going to be a career with the Department of Defense as a research librarian. And then ultimately, of course, when that went down the tubes, then I got into the private security and mercenary enforcement area, and that short stint in the Marine Corps was training to make myself viable towards employment in that direction. Now, a lot of people don't understand, again, the insanity of San Francisco. A lot of people don't understand how I wound up involved with the San Francisco Police Department for a very short period of time as an SFPD officer. I graduated from the academy. I hold the Peace Officer Standard Training Certificate, got into the SFPD for a short period of time. And again, it was the insanity of this dichotomy of communities in San Francisco where you have the gay community, which is a dominant part of the economy and and then you have the cops who all lived outside of San Francisco. Nobody who's a police officer or a emergency medical technician or a fire department worker, employee, any of these services, paramedics, none of them lived in San Francisco for decades and decades. They finally made it a requirement that you had to maintain a residence in San Francisco to get these blue-collar mafia jobs. But all they do is they rent some cheap apartment that they never live in, or they go to take hookers to, and then the rest of the time they live at their home outside of San Francisco because San Francisco is unlivable and nobody wants to live here. So in terms of these individuals, when these guys who were mostly Irish Catholic descent, Roman Catholic raised, very homophobic, very much the bigots, they viewed themselves as an occupying army at war with the gay community. So when they were trying at a point in time when Chief Gaines came in and Gaines became the police chief of the San Francisco Police Department, first thing he did was he took away the American flag out of his office because that whole military feeling of all of the police cars waving military flags on their antenna banners, all of the cops with American flags.
I would have hung it upside down, but okay, never mind.
Yeah, but he knew automatically that this was something that alienated everyone because they were exactly what they appeared to be, an occupying army that was basically imposing themselves on basically one of the biggest payers of taxes, people who were paying for the police services in the community. And so he took those flags away. And then he said, oh, we got to hire gay cops. This was funny. So what happened was when I had all the security experience that I had, and now keep in mind, I had a dishonorable discharge. And now theoretically, police do not hire anyone with a dishonorable discharge. Now, of course, nobody follows regulations that people think they follow. And nobody follows commitments that people think they follow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, people are really nuts. They really think that authority figures and authority facilities follow rules and regulations that they say they impose. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. But in my case, I, of course, had done security with the adult entertainment industries, which were run by the mafia. And the mobs, of course, knew that their biggest security was provided not by people like myself, but by the police and the EMTs and the fire department, because this is where those people spent all day. You know, whenever I was working in the adult entertainment facilities at the various centers in San Francisco, we had a situation in which on any given day, the San Francisco Police Department SWAT team would be there in full riot gear. We're talking about bandoliers of ammunition, full-level tactical vests, etc., and sniper rifle bags, and they'd be sitting in the strip joints all day long playing with the strippers.
Right.
My primary job as security was to make sure that the strippers were wearing the right kind of bikini.
Why some aliens hijacking some school bus, you know?
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that was the one time I saw them all had to leave was when a bank was being robbed in Chinatown, and then they had to leave. They had to vacate the premises to go answer to that call, and that's when I remember my gangster initiate brother Beaver, who happened to be in Chinatown at the time, saw him show up. And he says, damn, I never even knew San Francisco had a SWAT team. I says, yeah, that's because they're in the strip joints all day. And so that was, they all knew me. They all knew me at that time. And I was recommended by the mob. Now, that still wasn't enough. What happened was this crisis with the gay community because basically there was my dishonorable discharge. There was just other impediments, which basically they had a choice of whoever they wanted, usually lateral transfers from other departments anywhere in the United States. San Francisco Police Department, by the way, is one of the highest paid constabularies in the world. And obviously, with what they get paid, which is just astronomical, we're talking about with overtime, a San Francisco cop is getting something like $150 to $200 an hour. So, and so they can afford to hire.
With all that missing time from their playing, hey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so we're talking about, now, admittedly, in all fairness, that was then. Now,
exactly. Gotcha.
Yeah, things may have rehabilitated,
maybe.
just to get that out there, because I do depend on their services as a public informant when I do need to call them. I do want to get that out there, that things may have rehabilitated to a great extent, but
not.
Yeah. But then what happened was with the crisis they had, where the gay community said, we want to see gay cops. The problem was with all these lateral transfers they were getting from Arizona or New York City or wherever they could, guys with 20 years experience, all these guys were the same type of guys, just Irish Catholic mustachioed Pringles who were rabidly homophobic because of this Catholic fundamentalist background. So finally, I just went in there and because they had this hiring opportunity, and I lied, by the way, of course. I said, I'm gay. And they said, oh, thank God. And I got employed. It was just like that. It was that quick. Later on, other guys in private security, I was with them for only about 6 months, under 6 months. It was less than 180 days, maybe under 3 months. I had went through 6 months of the police academy. I had graduated from the academy. Then I was on the street for only a while, but I had been infected by chickenpox by one of the bastards, a fellow cadet. His infant son had contracted chickenpox, which I had never had as a child because nobody in Asia, believe this or not, very few people get chickenpox in Asia.
That's because it's patented in the USA, babe.
Yeah, something like that, likely. But I never had it as a child. So when you catch it as an adult male, it's very dangerous. You can be rendered sterile. In my case, I was rendered deaf in my right ear. It killed the nerve in my right ear. So, I was luckier than another cadet who contracted it from that bastard, who ultimately became a San Francisco sheriff. Stephen Bartholomew was his name. F you, Stephen Bartholomew. At any rate, so this prick comes in all like a zombie with open running sores. And of course, we all caught it, people who hadn't had it before. The other guy who contracted it, he got so coagulated in his throat, all of the chicken pox, that they tried to perform a tracheotomy, but they couldn't get to it in time, and he died, choked to death on his own chicken pox. Now, of course, that wasn't that bad with me. It just killed the nerve of my ear. Now, when I was deaf in one ear, they wouldn't let me work with a hearing aid at that period in time, and it was under the 180 days, so they could release me without putting me on medical benefits. So they got rid of me. And but my time with the SFPD gave me primary, shall we say, marketing power as a private security agent and as a mercenary enforcement agent. So that was to my benefit, my time with the SFPD. But my time with them, of course, one of the things I told other security guys who would come up to me and say, hey, how do I become an SFPD officer? Because that's everybody's dream.
Right.
Yeah, security is hard work, but if you become SFPD, you
gotta sling it right, brother.
Yeah, and so I said, well, they still got that. They had that gay hiring policy last time I checked, because they have all these problems with the gay community. And whoever doesn't believe this, by the way, just look up Fajita Gate. Fajita Gate was comparatively recent. Now, we're talking decades ago, probably the early 90s. Around the early 90s. But that was around that time. And Fajita Gate was where a couple of SFPD cops beat up some gay guy and stole his fajitas. It was at that point. This is how insane it was. So with all these problems with the gay community, where the cops were obviously in the wrong and just bullies and criminals in uniform, they were trying desperately to hire people to interact with that community. So when other security guys would say, Dietrich, you were in the SFPD. How did you get in? How do I get in SFPD out of private security? And I says, well, tell them you're gay. And these guys, obviously they didn't want the job bad enough.
Right.
But this was
did you have your ear pierced on the correct side tube?
Well, that's the funny part. Is that these guys, your average SFPD cop in that day and age, of course, had no idea what a gay person behaved like, what they looked like. They didn't, you just said it. They couldn't conceive of a straight guy saying that. So you were hired on basis of that because they were so ignorant. They had no idea what to operate on.
That's so right. And they were circumcised too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I tell these guys, hey, and they'd say, well, what if they find out that I'm not? And I would say, how on earth is anyone going to prove that you're not gay? You can't prove a negative. What are they going to do? Bring some guy in there to shake his ass in front of you, to lap dance on you, and they'll say, look, he ain't getting hard. He ain't gay. We can't hire. How are they going to prove that? And they'd say, well, if they see me with a girl walking out, then I said, tell them that you switch. It's just so.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's a swing thing, right?
Yeah, but this is just how absurd that whole world was. Now, things have radically changed. There are all kinds of cases and all that. But the reason I bring that up is we can close up the hour. This was the problem I had when I was talking to Christy Joanna Hart yesterday as a hostess on her Queen of Heart, and I love her dearly. But one of the things I was trying to bring up, and she kept personalizing it, thinking I was personalizing it, was I was trying to explain to her the problem of being a Native American or perceived as such in the United States, and how when I grew up, we were still in an era where Native Americans could be shot and you could get away with it, literally get away with murder, because they were quote unquote red savages. I was bringing up the example of Richard Oakes the Mohawk, who was known as the chief of Alcatraz, who was responsible for a population of well over 1,000 people, ultimately thousands of people for a period of time on Alcatraz Island when the Native Americans occupied Alcatraz off the coast of San Francisco. And his heart was broken and he left the island when his 13-year-old daughter was raped and murdered by an American federal agent who killed her on Alcatraz. Then he left the island. He was assassinated, went into a coma, Mad Bear, who was from the Iroquois Confederacy, a medicine man, woke him out of the coma, got him fully functional again. And then some other bastard assassinated him, and he died at the age of 30 at the hands of a child molester, a convicted child molester by the name of Michael Morgan, who worked at the YMCA in San Francisco and had a record of raping Native American boys. Now, here's this whole pattern I was explaining to her, and I'm like saying to her, you see, the pattern here was he went to trial, Michael Morgan. Not only did an all-white jury free him and let him go back to raping Native American boys at the YMCA, he got his job back. You can imagine that. I mean, unimaginable in this day and age that a convicted child molester would be allowed to go back working with children.
Well,
and,
because it's become the norm. It's the
Yeah,
direction
yeah,
of the
it's
sacrifice of a
shame.
civilization and a reality that that's the only way we function is by our groins. No, the chakra has to be moved up. We got to digest this bullshit of sacrificing to the point where we create our own diseases, our own illnesses, and our own battles that are just illusionary to a default.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're in these conditions. Apathy, disrespect, unhuman conditions, and power play penis warlords.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we live in a prison rape culture. That's aside from that. One of the things I was trying to point out to her was the question of how much Native American blood is in myself that people constantly bring up. It's like, well, you're only 12%, you're only 18%, you're Octoroon, you're 1/8 Native American. And I'm like saying, well, it doesn't matter. I look physically Native American enough to the point where I have been targeted because of that while growing up. So it didn't matter if I didn't have a drop of Indian blood in me. The fact was I was targeted because of that. And then the other thing I was bringing up with her, which I don't believe we had time to drive the point home, and she didn't really get it, was I was talking about one of the trollers from the United Kingdom. I brought it up because he was pertinent to the discourse. He was wearing a Guy Fawkes mask. And I was trying to explain to her, look, this idiot's wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, which, of course, has been a holiday, Guy Fawkes Day in England forever. It's their version of Halloween. People go around saying a penny for the guy. They burn Guy Fawkes in effigy. They ask for treats. If they don't get them, they play tricks. And so she should have had some resonance with this. And the reason I'm saying this is because this will go onto audio files so people who follow me can hear this.
Yeah, and
directly
tell
after
your
hers.
other times on your shows.
Yeah, and the whole point was that because of this Guy Fawkes holiday, we've got a situation where everyone should know in England that Guy Fawkes was a Roman Catholic, and he tried the gunpowder plot to basically establish a Catholic monarch on the throne of England. That was why he attempted it. But nobody remembers that in England now. All they remember is that Guy Fawkes comes from the movie V, which is based on a comic book, and the comic book meme has overridden the historical identity.
Right, it's not a true vendetta except against us with any kind of consciousness.
Yes. Well, every Guy Fawkes mask you buy, pennies go to support Warner Brothers, which owns the image. Yes. So the whole point is, yes, avoid anyone with a Guy Fawkes mask. But beyond that, you have an Englishman wearing it. You have English boys wearing it. And they're trying to look cool and hip and like social activists. But the whole reality is they are promoting a comic book meme, which is comparatively yesterday, that has overtaken any historical understanding of what the man's original image represented for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. So this is the whole point of American history. They live in a comic book meme imposed on them yesterday that is entirely fallacious and has nothing to do with any of human experience for thousands of years or millions of years before. So I think that's the point to bring. Yeah, in that regard, with all of this, and just how whacked and warped everyone's perspectives are.
All right, we're going to have 1 minute, dear sir. Please tell when and other times of your shows here at Revolution Radio.
Oh, of course, Tuesday night and Saturday night from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time. So do join us then. That would be 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays, and Saturday nights, just go to the schedule at www.freedomslips.com, from Freedom's Lips to your ears. And then you can hear me talk about less, shall we say, jumbled and shall we say, fragmented kinds of subject matter.
Well, I'm happy you didn't have a line to toe, because it was great, actually, finally getting to hug you.
Well, I hug you in return, dear. Very much appreciate the time that I've had with you. And
we should do it again next time you know you have insomnia, right?
Right, that's right. Because
But I do appreciate it seriously because I know the 3-hour time difference, and I like to be able to have people on the West Coast maybe wake up for a jolly or something that's going on, because these time and differences and hours and suggestions, because like right now I just heard from an old friend I haven't heard from in so long, and he's listening from over across the pond. Yeah, and time does mean something, even though it doesn't mean anything. And who has the value, who doesn't have the value. And yeah, the illusion is just tick-tock.
Well, join Mona Radler and myself on Facebook. Facebook.com/Douglas Dietrich or Facebook.com/Douglas Duane Dietrich to get my public community fan page. Put a like on it so I don't have to pay to maintain it. Mona Radler has 2 timelines for reasons I've yet to understand. Is one of them a fan page? Or is
one was a hack, and I got it back a year later, almost to the day.
Wow.
So I kept both because why the heck not? Hey, I'm multi-purpose or personated. Yes. Mwah. Thank you, Mr. Douglas Dietrich.
Love you, Mona.
You too, honey. Seriously. Mwah.
Thank you. Love you too. Hugs and kisses.
You had a couple tickles too, okay?
Yes,
later.
Right. Bye-bye.
Listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
What are we supposed to do?
I'm gonna fight, because I'm used to it. The rest of you are gonna have a tougher choice. And look, I don't want to sell it to you. It's too ugly for that. And it's ugly, and it's hard. But when you're fighting in your own backyard, and you're fighting for your family, it all hurts a little less and it makes a little more sense. But for us, this is our home. Even the tiniest flea can drive a big dog crazy. So the first thing we have to do is learn how to work together. Become a unit. And that's going to take some time. So we're going to have to evolve. Rewire our reflexes. Learn new skills and adapt old ones. So we'll find people we can trust. Friends with their ears to the ground who can help us get the things we need to fight back. Watch what they do. Study their tactics, their routines. The more we know, the easier it will